everyone, before we start the episode off, if you wanted to check out our audio-only episodes, you can go to Spotify and iTunes or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Also, if you go to iTunes, if you could leave us a 5-star review, that would be dope, and it really does help out. And if you want to support us on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/volume1pod.
They're like, I want to be an artist. I would give them this manga.
Yeah.
And I would be like, but we don't have to talk about it.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Volume 1, the anime and manga podcast where we review the first volume of a brand new manga each week. My name is Josh. I'm Blue Dabba Dee Dabba Die Michaels, and today, as always, I am joined by...
Megan, three-dimensional Fareed.
Oh.
Cody, linear perspective.
Linear perspective.
Leaner.
Leaner perspective Decker. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Volume 1. Today, we are going to be talking about the very first volume of Blue Period. This is a manga that we've been talking about reviewing for a long time, a manga that we've gotten a few recommendations for or to do, and it's something that I was very excited to read as an amateur artist myself. No big deal. I am curious, though, how you guys felt about it. Something tells me that Cody did not like it very much, but I want to know how Megan felt. Going into it, what did you guys expect? Because this is a series that is very art heavy, and I just don't know what your relationship with drawing and painting and those things is.
Yeah, it definitely reminded me of a time where I would ask my dad, like, oh, I want to learn how to draw, because my dad's he's an artist, so he does that. He's always done that, and I'm like, oh, teach me, and I just took me back to, like, him trying to teach me, like, theories, and, like, okay, if you're gonna draw a face, you have to start with a circle, and then do the lines, and then do the eyes, like, you have to map it all out, and me being like, yeah, this is cool, I gotta go now. Like, being taught how to draw is so much harder than you think it would be, and all of the things that go into it, it took me back to being a child and having my dad teach me all of those things, how to do the thing.
Yeah. Cody, I almost don't want to ask, but how'd you feel about this, dude?
Well, one, I didn't know this was going to be about painting. I thought it was going to be something like...
He literally has a paintbrush on the cover of the manga.
I just read shit.
So what did you think it was going to be about?
I don't know. I thought it was going to be like, oh, Black Butler. I'm like, I have no idea what that... I have no idea what that's about either. But
Black Butler?
Yeah, you thought it was going to be similar to Black Butler
I
because
have
they have
no idea.
colors in the name.
Just like that was it. That was my entire basis for a thing. I'm like, oh... Because I have taken like art classes and stuff. It's like, oh, weird. That's like a reference to okay. So I took art classes in college. So I like reading. I'm like, yeah, that is stuff that they teach you.
Mm-hmm. It took me back to high school.
This probably would have been like nice, like if to read like while learning about art.
Yeah.
But it did just feel like, yeah, that is what they teach you.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about on the podcast how I feel about manga that tries to learn me things. And
learn me things.
I'm not a fan of being learned when I'm trying to read. And this is a manga that is very, very heavy-handed in its lessons about art. And it's sort of a detriment to the first volume because it does focus on introducing people to the world of art. And maybe it's because this is a world that I do love and appreciate that it wasn't as bad, but it still felt very, very heavy-handed to me.
I'll say this did a better job of talking about like being an artist than Act Age did about being an actor.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally. Like, I had like friends in high school because I went to an art school, so this took me back then, and like the teacher reminds me of the freaking art teacher that worked there, and all of my art friends would always be like, yeah, I have a project due, or I'm trying to get into this college for my drawings, and it was like very competitive. And I feel like even more so with like music and like theater and stuff, like it was super like crazy because they were trying to get these deadlines and get these things into colleges, and it took me back to there, and I was like, oh yeah, I like the characters, I like what they're doing, but I'm not an artist, so I don't need to know every detail about
and it felt, like you said, very, very real. And as someone who's like struggled with their identity as an artist, struggling with even that word, it's a word that I've always hated because I feel like it made me feel pretentious to say it out loud. And there's all these things that are tied to like your identity or your confidence when you're doing something creative. And it felt real to see this character struggle with those things and deal with those things, much like I assume me and other creative people have dealt with those things, down to problems about like it being a viable option as a career or to like whether it's something they could just do as a hobby, if it's even worth doing as a profession. And these are all struggles that I really, really connected with and enjoyed. But as far as like story, there wasn't much happening. And
the issue for me is the main character, it opens with, he's like, I'm great at everything. And I'm like, all right. He's like, my dad told me to be social, so I became social. My mom told me to be good at school, so I became good at school. So I'm like, so you're doing fine. And then he's like, and I figured I'd learn how to paint. And he's like, maybe I will do it. So it's about a guy like he wasn't even like that particularly passionate about it.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm gonna learn how to draw.
He found his passion. Yeah.
That's how I felt too.
As it goes on.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it wasn't like, I mean, I don't know why it would start on him. Like he's like, okay, here's a guy he's doing great, and then he discovers he likes painting. Because
I think it shows that unless you're doing what you want to do. I think he was doing what everybody was telling him to do. And he felt like, even though I think it was important to show him be good at all these things, because it shows and illustrates that even though you can have on paper what people seem to want, you can still feel empty if it's not something that you're fulfilled by. Like he's a character who's going through the motions of whether it's social situations or school. And even he says, I think word for word, like, you know, I feel these things make me feel nothing. Even when he gets praised for getting good grades or doing well, like he's like, I feel empty. And he even asks himself, like, whose feelings even are these? Like he just like, so I do like that it showed him that way, because it didn't show that this was like all this person had. It showed this person like discovering that this is what he was missing. And I liked that about it. And I did also like how it you know, again, learning things from reading, I did like how it broke down art. It again, heavy-handed, but I love how it broke down art in a very technical way. I loved that its message was that, you know, genius isn't necessarily something you're born with, that you can work and be good at things by just practicing and learning, that art isn't this magical, mysterious thing. It's something that these people have practiced and worked really hard at.
But then also there are people who are just good at it.
No, yeah, totally. I mean, there's people born with natural talents, and like you see later on with another character how he's just good, and then but he's missing certain technical things that could make him better. Just because you're good doesn't mean that you can't work for it. Like they do say a line like, you know, like art still requires you to study various techniques, so when you simply say it's talent, it doesn't sound like I've done anything. And I was like, oh my god, that's so cool.
When people say like, oh man, you're just so good at that, you're so talented, like it can to some people seem like a slight to the hard work that they've done to get to that point. But
they have a character specifically say, this is the first thing I've done.
Yeah, but he even still, and that's another thing that I really liked. It's because, especially in a competitive, like, you know, art is very competitive. You're constantly holding your work up against other people's and comparing yourself to other people, and people are comparing you to that person. So there are going to be people that are just naturally more talented than you. But like Megan said, even that person was missing a passion. He was technically very gifted and could see things a certain way and understood things a certain way, but had a hard time interpreting his emotions and his putting his feelings into his pieces. And so like, yeah, again, like you see things on Instagram or you see people on wherever online, and you just look and you go like, damn, that person is just like talented. That, you know, you hear
that thing where they post like an aggressive sex song while they paint like a flower, and it's like just a song about the like filthiest thing, and it's like,
yeah,
look,
it's hot.
It's a sunset, and it's like, do you have any idea what that song is about?
Ride it, my pony.
It's not. There's like two that are trending where it's just about aggressively face stuffing. You know.
Oh my god.
I try to do a euphemism for what it is, but
that's as much as you could say.
Face effing. There's like two separate songs that are trending that I see that people be like, look, I'm painting, and it's like, wow, it's just a guy talking about how he's gonna do that, and people are like, it's a nice song.
Yeah, but maybe that's calculated because the song is trending. So if they play the trending song, then maybe they think the video will trend. You know, it's all algorithm
I get why
stuff.
they do it. It's just weird.
Yeah. I did like to see the hard work that he did put in through the first volume, because he wasn't good at first. I mean, he was better than most because he I don't know, he's drawing like the freaking scenery of his freaking front yard by the window, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty good for an amateur. Like it's pretty decent. But then he like works hard throughout the summer, and like usually you don't see that. Usually you see him be good, amazing right off the bat, which I was kind of expecting it to be. But it wasn't, and that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and we could go a little bit more beat by beat and kind of walk through it a little bit more, even though this is a pretty simple volume. Not like a whole lot happens. It's about him discovering sort of his passion. But just a quick synopsis for anybody who doesn't know anything about Blue Period at all. Obviously, it's about art and painting and someone who is becoming an artist. But the official synopsis is second-year high school student Yatora Yaguchi is bored with his normal life. He studies well and plays around with his friends, but in truth, he does not enjoy either of those activities. Bound by norms, he secretly envies those who do things differently. That is until he discovers the joy of drawing. It's always, to me, also a little, I think, intimidating as a mangaka to have to draw a story about drawing.
I was also like, I mean, the art didn't particularly stand out to me in this, so it is like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna write a story about like how great, about artistry, and I'm like reading the art. I'm like, I mean, yeah, it's pretty bold to jump in with that when I'm like, this does not really stand out to me.
Really? I really enjoyed the art. I thought it was very pretty.
I mean, the art, I think, is, the art is, I think, really good. But, when you're looking at, like, Miura's work from Berserk, or you're looking at, even we just read not too long ago, Vagabond, spoiler alert, that episode is coming out. You look at these things, even like Witch Hat Atelier, you look at these like really different, unique, beautiful art styles.
Which I would say Witch Hat did a more of a thing for like being an artist to me than this did. And the thing is, like, and because I'm reading this and I'm like, well, I mean, like, I'm not. I would figure a thing that's a tribute to art would like really have like art that pops out to me, but there's stuff that like isn't just about that. That's about other stuff that has like way better art too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the art didn't stand out. There are panels that stand out.
When they do a sketch of a thing in the real world, I'm like, oh, yeah, that is a good sketch.
Yeah, and the covers of the manga are all painterly and beautiful, and they really stand out. But yes, the art in the majority of the art in the first volume and in the other volumes is, and again, this isn't a dig or a slight, but it is, and I don't even mean it to sound the way I feel like it's going to sound, but it is basic.
Yeah, it's like, it's not bad. It just doesn't stand out as being like, that was a really well like done thing. I really liked how I could see like expressions and characters. I didn't get, so it was just a weird feeling reading it where it's about, look, lean your perspective. I'm like, all right, yeah, but I'm not even seeing it be presented in a particularly visually like interesting way. Yeah, I'm seeing it like seeing a worksheet. Yeah, so that's like my issue reading. I'm like, I feel like if you were gonna do this, you would, have it like pop out and stuff.
Yeah, be a statement and have maybe a little more style. And it does have its own style. But again, I'm comparing it to things like Berserk and those just like beautiful spreads, and you're feeling all this emotion just from looking at this drawing.
In characters, like as they're talking, I'm not really seeing like, oh, look how their faces are and stuff. So it feels like I'm like, reading a spreadsheet.
I mean, speaking of that, I'm very excited to see how the anime
maybe they'll
does this, because I can hear the like classical music playing in the background, like when you're seeing these large pieces of art. Like I could totally like picture how it's gonna go, and I'm very excited how they see that. Maybe it will be as heavy as the manga with the art. What would you say? ¿Cómo se dice?
What?
Tutorials? I don't know.
I'm sure the anime will make that much more like,
visually pleasing,
like with stuff moving around, and like the shot, like in the beginning where it is colored, I'm like, oh, that's a really nice style. The problem is when the color goes away, I don't get any sense of a style anymore. But yeah, if they have them like, look at this, and they can show like how. I'm sure that would be interesting. And like reading this is like, this would be nice to have when I was learning about drawing and stuff.
Or just in color. I mean, I feel like it's going to have so much more impact in color versus in black and white. I mean, that's art in general, but I'm excited to see how it turns out.
Unless you're a filmmaker.
Then
it's deeper when it's in black and white.
It's deeper.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've read a lot of art books, and this did feel like I was reading an art book in that it was basically a lesson. And it did... sort of inspired, like parts of it did really inspire me, but not in the way that I thought I was going to be inspired. I thought I was going to be inspired because I was going to connect with a character who also had a similar interest in art. But where I was inspired is its look at art and its dissection of it as a skill as opposed to this thing you're born with.
Yes.
And that was kind of inspiring. And she gives, the teacher later on in the first volume gives assignments to the students. And it kind of made me think, like, obviously this is a real art lesson that I'm sure a lot of students are given. It made me think, like, maybe I should try that. Like, that'd be something kind of fun to try. It did sort of, reignite my passion for art because, and again, we can get into this, like, maybe towards the end of the episode, but, my relationship with it is very touch and go. I get really, really invested and fall in love with it. And then the more I do it, because of things like too much pressure that I put on myself and, I fixate on things and it takes up so much of my mind and even when I start, doing things for other people, their critiques and people's tastes, like it starts to wear on me.
Well,
I
like,
get that.
go ahead.
It was just because like Mob Psycho covers like the idea of like, oh, I'm good at this, but it doesn't like give me fulfillment like that. Like, but like I connected with the character too, and like the story that was happening, and it like presented it in a very like the animation of that is like, that's like a whole thing, and so like reading this where they're just like that is what's happened, but it's like just that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I did enjoy this, and this is not a critique necessarily, but it didn't have a lot of nuance. Like,
yeah, that's why I couldn't connect with it because it was like, yes, this is what it said it would be.
Yeah, there were things that kind of shocked me with like his relationship with the people around him, like that I was not expecting, which was nice, and it was like, oh, that's so nice, like. His friends later on when you find out, well, that's kind of like later. I don't know if we should talk about that.
No, I mean,
now.
yeah, I mean, I guess we could just
spoiler alert when they mention, different perspectives in drawing.
Well,
spoiler alert for art.
I just remembering, like, I could just relate. This is just relating to my dad because he's the art guy. But you guys were like talking, and he was like, "Yeah, I always find mistakes," and I'm like wondering if that's okay. And no one else sees this mistake but me. And like, I'm sure you relate to that so much because you're like, "Fuck, dude."
Yeah, I mean, to a point where it'll be all I think about. It'll occupy my mind, which is part of the reason why I like it, because I do have, my attention. I'm very easily distracted, or my mind is a scatterbrain. I'm a scatterbrain, and so when I can hyper focus on one thing, it is kind of nice because I do get lost in this thing, and I come out and I'm like, oh man, I forgot I existed.
Yeah, kind of like him when he's just like, okay, close your eyes, and then he gets like transported. He's walking on the buildings and like being immersed in the art. I did like those panels a lot.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So he is a guy that is pretty slightly above average. Like he gets good grades. He even says like when it comes to his studying that he's good at studying because he just works at it, not because he's a genius, but he just puts in the work. And he talked about how he breaks things down by tasks, and that's the only way he's able to accomplish things. And he likes checking things off of this like list of things that he has to do. His friends are these typical guys who go out and smoke cigarettes and watch sports and drink.
They're like he's like a delinquent on text, like on paper he's a delinquent. He hangs out delinquents, but he gets good grades, and they're like, "You're a delinquent? How does this happen?" Because he's out late every freaking night, and he's getting up to no good, but not really.
Yeah. And he feels empty, which I can relate to. Hardcore relate to. Again, like I get why like this didn't really draw you in, because it's like I said, it's pretty cut and dry. It's not dancing around anything. But I felt at a similar place. I remember how I felt when I was like working at a restaurant 5-6 days a week. All I was doing was drinking after work, and then being so hungover that I wasn't ready to function until I had to go to work again. Yeah. And I remember feeling empty. Like this can't be what life is.
Yeah. Like I felt that way like my first year of college, because I wasn't like performing or doing anything really. And I was like, oh, like why do I feel so bad? Like I was like depressed. I didn't want to do anything, or like I thought I couldn't do anything. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. The thing I love to do, I'm not doing anymore, and I haven't done in a year and a half. That's probably why I feel so hollow and horrible, which is like crazy to think about, because I'm sure that you weren't like necessarily drawing as much as you wanted to or like thought about, but it's like that thing that you like to do that's like your passion that you're not doing, it affects you like completely.
Now, there was a time when performing did give me like a sense of like, oh, this is what I should be doing. And that like wore off over the course of several years of the system and everything. But It is like, this isn't like unrelatable either.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all done stuff like
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I like how, ultimately, so he's very conflicted. He even makes a comment outside of this like bar about the city that they're in and how, it has this like air about it, and it has this feeling about it. And he sees it as this like almost like calming sort of like blue, beautiful, scenic view. And his friends are like, what are you talking about? Dude, it
Yeah.
smells like garbage out here.
Yeah, because it's like the sunrise, because they're like out all night, and then
Yeah.
he's like, wow, this is pretty cool, and he's like blushing when he talks about it. He doesn't want to talk about how he like really feels about anything, because he's trying to like put up this front like he's a cool guy.
Yeah. And what I do like is that his friends, he does have this, like, he's like forced to finish this assignment by a certain time. He has a certain time limit in which he has to do this. And so he kind of just thinks about that scene, paints it blue. And I'm skipping around a bit just so we can get to that part that you're talking about his friends ending up being supportive. It's just because at first I didn't know if I liked that his friends were supportive, but I think that's more often the reality, is that you
Yeah.
think all the time that so many people are going to make fun of you, and they're going to be like, this guy's weird. Or who does this guy think he is? Because it's all of our insecurities. But more often than not, people are like, I don't really care. It's not even that they're like jazzed necessarily. They're just like, all right, whatever. You want to be, you like drawing, that's whatever, I feel like it's more that than ever like, we can't hang out with this,
Yeah.
artsy-fartsy guy anymore.
Yeah, totally. They take it. I was not expecting
That's,
that.
like, hilarious. Like, is that a realistic scenario for somebody like, you like drawing? We can't hang out anymore?
Well,
I mean, there's like a fear of like being who you really are and feeling like you've been lying to people. And if they like the lie version of you,
yeah.
and this fear of them not accepting the real version of you because that's not the version you sold to them.
There was
Like the issue, like if it was like, oh, I like doing theater play, and he's like, oh, that's kind of like embarrassing to admit to like my bro friends that I like doing theater. Like I would understand that, but I don't see where like I'm discovering that I like drawing. I don't see in what world that's like.
I mean, it depends on what you're drawing,
because they're like delinquents. Like they're like not like just regular friends.
Graffiti is
like,
very popular.
Well,
Yeah.
they even say he's like, I'm gonna draw boobs. He's
Which
like,
he
that's
does.
my favorite. He does
does.
do that.
Yeah.
And the teacher's like, egging him on. He's like, yeah, you should. Can you like capture the bounce to them? Could you do that? They're like kind of embarrassed, and I like the teacher a lot. But that was like a line that I wrote down. Like I didn't realize it was so scary to declare that you like something.
Yeah.
Like that you're actually not just messing around with this thing. Like, no, I actually want to do this. Like now.
To admit it to yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that. I mean, I've also experienced that. Again, back to it being relatable. Like I've, to say like, this makes me happy is like, whether it's being, I don't know what, but is like a weird feeling to have to say that out loud to me.
Yeah, because like what we have in common is doing stand up at least, and it's like I didn't have any. So the issue for I didn't have like feeling weird about saying you like. I don't get that feeling.
Yeah.
Because you're true to yourself, Cody.
Well, that like this
Well, I
is
think-
like this is like if I did nothing, then it would be like, oh, okay, you just don't get like this. But I have like done these things, and I have had these. But it is like, I mean, is that hard to be like, oh, I want to do this? Like people are like usually like impressed with like if you do stuff at all.
I mean, truly, and yeah, you framing it like that does make me understand more, because you got into stand up at a very young age, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you went to school and you had life experience, but for me it was being in like the workforce and being like a quote unquote adult. I mean, to a point where, working at a restaurant was all I had. I didn't have comedy, I didn't have, art or any creative outlet. And so for me, I didn't have those people to talk to that had any creative interests. Not to say that they were, bad people, but we just really had drinking and working at a restaurant in common, and that was it. So like when I finally discovered stand-up comedy and met you and met these people, it was like wild to me. It was crazy to be like, oh my God. I mean, there are times you can still feel alienated and lonely and all these things, but to feel like, wow, there's a group of people who think like me. It was a crazy thing.
Yeah, and I always had that too, because I went to an art school, so it was never like a thing where it was like people that didn't have any interest in any type of art. That was like hanging out with those people would be different than like going to class and being like, oh yeah, we have art next next thing. Did you finish that project? Oh yeah, we have that theater performance. It's like it was so crazy. Like everyone surrounded in my circle was doing some type of art.
Yeah.
Which most people can't say.
Yeah.
I guess anyone I've been around with has always been doing something.
Yeah.
So like the idea of like if someone, that's why like you're like, oh, he like wants to be a painter. I'm like, oh, like a lot of people, I've always grown up around people who like are and like wanted to become artists. So like I don't see it like I don't like the reality where that's like embarrassing doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. I guess a better way to say it, and maybe you've experienced this with stand up, like having a job and then also doing stand up, is to me like,
oh, I mean, I don't tell anyone. I didn't tell anyone I did stand up when I wasn't doing stand up.
But when people find out, this is sort of that feeling that I guess am talking about, is like it's almost as if they're like, oh, that's cute. That's cute that you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels like that. Oh, you like to draw? Like that's cute.
To
oh,
the
you like to do
normies.
stand up? You're here, working as a dishwasher or doing whatever, and then they find out that you do comedy, and they're like, they immediately see it as like, oh, that's nice that you have that hobby.
What I mostly see is you tell them you do stand up or you're a painter, like, oh, I'll go to one of your shows. And then they don't go, and you have to pretend like you think they will. Yeah. That's like the worst scenario.
Yeah, it is a constant dance, and it's why you stop telling people.
Yeah, that's why. I don't want to have to pretend to like believe them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's also, again, this like goes back to identity. It's also because like, for me, I guess, to say like that I do stand up, or to say that I'm an artist or I draw in any medium, it's almost then the follow up questions tend to be like, oh, like, well, what do you like to draw, or what do you like to do? And you really, as someone who maybe is hard on themselves and feel like they haven't really accomplished much in that space, like, I don't have anything that's on display anywhere, or anything that's like published anywhere, or like at a museum, so inevitably it just like these questions start to feel like I am like a fraud.
I mean the thing where it's like if you haven't made money doing it, you can't call yourself
exactly.
it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which I saw when we worked together, I saw a guy go through that process with you.
Yeah.
Where they didn't take it seriously until you put down a number.
Yeah.
And then they went, oh, and now they ask questions about it still.
Yeah. And, little tangent on that is like, I spent so many years feeling that way, and I don't really know what clicked. And I do think it was like meeting more people in stand up that really gave me the confidence to not, like, that is not an option to me anymore. The moment someone like minimizes or downplays like the things I want to do, and it's happened in relationships, and I'm sure you could attest to that too, like all the time.
That my version of like being embarrassed about saying something, but it is like, oh, I just like anime. That was my thing. Like, oh, no one can know my secret, but like not like stuff I do.
Yeah.
And now look at you.
And now look
at me now. Exact same position, but now I talk about it with people.
But it did feel like like when you're telling a girlfriend or something, and then they go like, oh, well, he's gonna go to another like, he does comedy, but it's at like, no one's really there, and you know what I mean. It starts to, there's maybe some shame attached to it, but what I stopped doing was I no longer would tolerate anybody minimizing what I was trying to accomplish, and that was a big step for me, because back to the manga, like I really did relate to this like struggle a lot. Again, not to be too repetitive, but my problem was that it was a direct portrayal of that, as opposed to, like you said, something like Mob Psycho that is intertwining that theme within a bigger narrative or story.
I was feeling that way reading it. I did enjoy like the character moments and like the little relationships that he was building with the club, and then like where he was going to go, and people were going to college, and what their triumphs are. I really liked those parts, but then it was just very heavy on the tutorials and explaining what this is and techniques and stuff. If it had maybe 25% less of that, I would have been more on board. I'm sure this is the first volume, so I bet they're just putting it out there because this is going to be an ongoing thing throughout the whole manga, which I'm kind of a little bummed about. I mean, I want to see this character grow and what he's going to accomplish, but it was very heavy on that. So if you're expecting like a story about this young artist going through it, and that's mainly what it's about, you're gonna get not as much as that in the first volume, at least.
Yeah. It's a pretty mellow story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I see it as mostly it's for educational purposes. I don't know if you would.
I mean, unfortunately, it did feel like that. Again, I liked a lot of it,
and the art, like the instructional part, wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, if I skip them saying,
Yeah.
explaining what linear perspective is, do I miss anything? And the answer was no, because I didn't miss a joke. I didn't miss any anything. Oh, but that leads into this. It is just like, this is how art works. I'm like,
It's
all
a lot
right,
of checking
so
out.
I'm gonna. All right,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
oh, and, okay, so now he's talking. Okay.
Yeah, like you said, it could have had the same messages that it had throughout, but without the tutorials. I mean, it was a paint by numbers, no pun intended, sort of like.
Really? You didn't-
You
to
should
do
have
it.
said
Just
no
do a
pun
pun.
intended. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean to do it, but
It was good.
I could just own it.
Yeah, just own
Yeah,
it
yeah,
next
yeah.
time.
I meant to do that.
Oh, that was very smart.
Thanks, guys. I did like it though, but like you said, not a lot happens. He sees that painting that a classmate does, an oil painting.
I did. I saw he was like comparing his art to like someone else's, and I was just like, these look the same. I don't. I don't know if that was like part of it, where it is just like, because if you are like a drawing artist, you can like really see the differences.
Yeah.
But I was just like, you both look like you're doing a good job.
And there's a trans character.
Is there?
Yeah,
Oh.
the main girl that has the school, like she's not wearing like a typical schoolgirl uniform
She
like
wants
everyone
to be like
else.
a mangaka, I think. right?
Yeah, and she has like the boy blazer on with her uniform, the tall one with the long hair.
Oh, I
'Cause
thought
they
that was
call-
just quirky.
No, they call her by her old name, which is like a guy's name, and she's like, "Don't call me that." And they kind of
That's called a dead name.
dead
It
name.
is.
There you go, Cody.
Yeah,
Happy
Cody.
Pride Month. Is it still Pride Month?
Yeah,
Yeah. So I was like, oh
Well,
my
it's
god,
Pride Year.
it's Pride all the
it's
time.
Pride Life.
Pride Life. Period.
Period.
Anyway,
Period.
yeah, I was very happy to see that, because they say like cross dresser at first, and that was like from one of the delinquents, and I was like, okay, but then they actually say like she, and I was like, oh, and at
Yeah.
the end they say he again, but I was like, okay, but whatever.
Yeah,
At
that-
least there's
is
some
that-
representation.
In universe, the character being wrong, or did the narrative forget that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Mm.
That I was like kind of confused, but it's fine. I did like that aspect and how they like played with that, but I really like all the people in the club. I like the teacher a lot.
Yeah.
She's really hard on them, but like also very caring. And usually in high school, like anime, like you don't see a lot of teachers being like front and center unless they're like complete assholes or like have a creepy agenda. So I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I liked, the critiques that she would give.
Mhm.
But, the problem even with the critiques is that it was this like awesome critique where she said like, the perspective lines were a little off. You can see that by doing this small thing, it'll add more three dimensionality, if that's even a word, to it, and depth to it. But then inevitably it would be followed up with a tutorial as to like
Mhm.
perspective and for
Mhm.
panels. And I mean like,
this is
words upon words.
If I had a nephew, or God forbid, a kid of my own
God
someday, who like, look, I'm sorry, but who like, they're like, I want to be an artist, I would give them this manga.
Yeah.
And I would be like, but we don't have to talk about it. But this is something I would give to someone who like wants to learn about art.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty fair. And as somebody who like considers themselves savvy in a lot of the subject matter here, it did feel like I don't need to reread any of this.
That was it. I'm not
Um,
even good at art. I just took classes, so like I just remember that like, yeah, that is this, and so like I was like, maybe if I didn't just know what these terms like, that would have been fun to like learn about that.
Because I feel like, I'm sure there are a lot of people who don't know a lot about art, but
Mhm.
I feel like most people took an art class, whether it was in high school or as an elective or something, and at the least like have like picked it up or
That
You would think,
I
though.
think like what the tutorials are pretty basic information.
Yeah.
Because I think you have to learn about art and drawing in school.
Yeah.
I feel like you do, but I
Yeah,
could be wrong.
but
I don't
some
even mean
people-
like you have. I mean like it's a requirement to take at least one art
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
So
People
like,
don't though. Some people really don't have any idea on this world. So I think this is like a really cool opening for
That's
people
what-
that have fucking no idea what any of this is about.
that's why I think if it
then-
was about kids, I would probably like it more.
Mm.
But then also, I feel like the tutorials would have been more fun too.
Yeah, but then I think too, like, know your audience. And I feel like, and I'm not generalizing, but I feel like for the most part, like, and Cody might be an outlier, maybe. Tell me if I'm wrong or not, but I feel like part of loving manga and part of loving even comic books is like, you do learn how to appreciate, art or things that are being drawn. Like when we're talking about Dandadan and the perspective of the running, like you just start to notice those things because of how much art you're consuming. So I feel like knowing your audience, like I don't think people reading this are the people that really need this lesson.
And I know there are things where that they have like gone over and they've explained stuff that I understand, but they've presented it in a more way of like it's not just the information. I'm also appreciating like how it's being presented to me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that.
I do like just reading bullet points of like trivia. But you know they'll be like, oh, this is, you know, you see cells at work.
Yeah.
They do like, oh, you know, freeze frame. This is what this virus is, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is pretty much slice of life. And I love a slice of life that has a theme of learning shit. Like, I just watched a fishing anime that I was like, oh, I know so much more about fish than I fucking probably should. I watched a camping anime. Like, there's so many niche little things that you can just learn so much about. Like Super Cub, for instance, this season. It's the same exact thing. Like, I don't need to know about cubs. They're like little Vespas and motorcycles, but I do.
Yeah.
and it's so much more sprinkled in than versus this when it may be on a page. That's why I said an anime I'm very excited about, because it's going to be, I feel like it's going to be a completely different experience.
I'm sure I'll like the anime much more than the manga.
Yeah.
Unless they just freeze frame and they're like, this is what linear perspective is.
Yeah.
Like, even with color, I'll probably like it more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to just hit some other like bullet points that the story covers, because it is a lot of art lessons.
Yeah, which I don't remember.
Yeah. There is a point in the story where he sees a fellow art student or art club members painting, and that's what really inspires him to join the club. He's pressured really into joining, and then he kind of commits to it really quick. I do respect that about him as a character. He's like, I don't want to waste my time. If I commit to something, I don't want to waste my time. And so if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all in.
Yeah, and like you said, it kind of relates back to you. It's like people that have been doing it for so long. Like these kids have probably been drawing since they've been little. So he's like, I have to do catch up. Like I have to really get into it now. So it's pretty crazy. Like I felt that too. Even in 8th grade, I was still young, but I was like, oh, there's people who have been doing theater for a much longer than I have. I need to get my bootstraps up and really get into it.
Yeah.
If there was going to be a direct comparison to learning to paint for me, it is doing car work. Because that's something I found out I had a passion for. I like doing it. And because they talk about like demystifying the idea of art, where it is like it's not something you can or can't do, it's something you can do if you you go into it. And yeah, like learning how to fix up a car. I think that's my version of painting.
Hey, any manga about cars?
Let me know.
Comment down below, because Cody will eat it up.
Yeah.
Any scrap yards?
Any scrap heads?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Scrap heads.
No, I mean, that's true too. I mean, when you look at something and you think like, to be able to tell yourself like, I know how that was made, or I know how to fix that, or I know how that works, is like a cool feeling. And it does seem, when you don't know anything about it, it does seem like, you know, amazing that there's a group of people able to do it.
Yeah.
When I learned how to change brakes or change oil, I was like, that's it. You know, but it did seem like this impossible thing.
I've been ripped off my whole life.
Really? Yeah. You realize that, because there are things we just never bother to learn. And I like the word demystifying, because that's really what it is. It's just like it's taking an honest look at these things and realizing that we just never bothered to learn. Like it's as simple as that. Like
they don't want you to learn, because then the oil industry goes, the oil changing industry of unscrewing a bolt and then putting more oil in.
Yeah.
It's wild. I mean, I remember, again, changing brakes even seems like it'd be a hard thing to do.
It should be.
Very easy.
I have messed up a lot. And it's like, oh, it'll like fix itself if you like just press the...
Yeah.
It's like such a sturdy like machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh, you have to adjust. I'm like, no, you don't. Just pump the brakes a couple times. It'll like adjust itself.
All you need is a C-clamp, baby. That's
all you need is a C-clamp.
But that just goes to show, I mean, people that like take the time to learn those things are going to do those things and charge money for it, and because you don't want to. That's why artists, not everyone can draw, but they love art, so there has to be a demand. Like it's the people that take the time to do these things are the ones.
And the money conversation is something that I, again, at maybe towards the end of the episode, want to talk more about too. Just like the struggle with that, like mechanics being able to charge and feel no guilt about it, but then like artists and someone who's like dealt with it having experienced like all this like guilt.
They talk about that in that fiction book.
Which one?
The fantasy fiction formula.
Oh yeah, the fantasy fiction formula.
Because the final chapter is about like selling your book, and then the author, she mentions like, these are the steps you're gonna have to take. You're gonna have to like, the company's gonna tell you have to take these things out and like compromise on some stuff. But if you're like, I'm not gonna do that, then tell you what, you can go ahead and release it online for free.
Yeah.
But let's be honest here, that's not what you want to do. So just accept that you're gonna have to do these changes. Because if you're really against it, just put it out there for free.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is like it changes the nature of your relationship with your art, because now you're having to put a value on it, like an actual value on it. And, you're questioning, is it worth that? Do people think it's worth that? And
there was an art piece that really impressed me at the first community college I went to.
Oh.
I went to
some
a
more lore.
Yeah. But someone, they were doing like outside, they did like, outdoor art. Someone, what they did is they got a bunch of leaves. And then they put like fishing line, like it was like autumn. So they got a bunch of leaves, fishing line, and then they hung them off branches. So it just looked like it was like frozen and wind blowing.
Uh-huh.
I was like, that was cool.
Yeah.
Not to talk about my dad again.
Talk about it.
But he just was at like a fair or whatever, and he was selling his pieces, and they're like $100 pieces, like they're pretty massive too, but people would like ask him how much is it, and he'd be like, oh, it's $100, and then they'd be like, oh, okay. And he kind of like told me like in confidence, he was like, wow, like, I'm not going to talk down my pieces because I know how much they're worth. Like, I know how much they're like, people will be willing to pay if they love my stuff. And I'm not going to, like, no one told him like, hey, can you lower it? Or like, hey, can you do that? And he felt like confidence by no one telling him to lower the price because they knew what it was worth by seeing it. And I was like, oh, Dad, good for you.
Yeah, it's tough waters to navigate, for sure. But another point that he hits is, there's 2 points that, more than 2, but 2 that I want to focus on right now is he talks to his teacher about it, and his teacher thinks it's a joke that he's signing up, that this is going to be his career path. He puts option 1, option 2, and option 3 are art school, because if he's going to commit, he's all in.
And the fucking counselor, like, there's never a counselor in a manga that's not an asswipe. They're like, you think you're going to do this? Like, talk to your mom.
Yeah.
We don't get paid enough for this shit. It's like, they're always like telling him not to do what you want to do. Like, it's...
Yeah, but again, that is what I really love about this manga. And again, Cody, I'm latching onto the word demystify because, again, it goes back to everybody. It goes back to everybody and that stigma of artists not making money. But the way and I meant to say counselor earlier, but yes, the way that the teacher explains it later is that she's like, yeah, you might not may have a career in art if you go to art school, but you also might not have a career if you go to...
I like that. That's what the game of life teaches you. The game where you're like, you can go to college, you have better odds of getting a good job.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on this college bullshit. It's all a fucking scam.
Yep.
It's all just get a piece of paper, man.
As soon as my financial aid ran out, I was out of there.
God,
I just took classes on stuff I wanted to learn, and they're like, you have to do homework. I thought I didn't have to do homework.
I'm an adult. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
So I'm not... How about I don't show up to the final I just drop out?
Yeah.
It feels so redundant, especially if you're going for if you're going as an artist to college and you're not learning the things.
You have to learn calculus.
Why? I just took a math class. Why do I need to? It's cool. It does not retain. It's just it's so stupid. It feels like high school all over again, where you're just going through the motions of learning all these things and like, do I need to know this? I won't remember this in a year. It's just things that you don't need to know.
Yeah.
Math used to be optional,
and it's no longer optional. But it also I don't feel like I use half the shit that I've used in school.
I use a calculator.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even do basic multiplication anymore.
Yeah, no. I don't have time for that.
If I absolutely have to, I can, okay.
How the times tables have turned.
There we go.
There we go. Now we're back on track. But yeah, I loved her explanation for that. She says, yeah, but if you do go to school, like it does, you're more likely to get a job because for a laundry list of reasons. You'll be around more creative people. There'll be networking opportunities. There are representatives that come. Nothing in life is guaranteed.
Yeah, basically, it doesn't guarantee you a job, but it does give you higher odds of getting a job.
Yeah. And she says that's with anything. So I did like that. And then there was another moment with the parents and him struggling to tell them and then them finding out and then them dealing with that.
And yeah. So so cute. He's like, the dad's like, yeah, he'll tell us eventually. Don't worry about it. And she just goes in, sees him sleeping, sees all the paintings, and she's like, oh, like, I'm so proud of you. And he just has no idea. This is probably weighing on him, not telling them. And it's just so cute. I didn't expect that either.
Yeah.
Like,
it was a very cute moment. Now, to play devil's advocate for a second.
don't. I don't like the devil.
Just for a second.
I don't like
If
advocates.
someone has never, ever he's in high school, let's say 16 years of existence, ever been known to touch a pencil and draw, and then one day says that that's what he wants his entire life to be, you're allowed to be a little skeptical.
I mean, yeah, that's why if he was younger, it would like make more, because it is just like, oh, okay, you're gonna be an artist. Like, does this guy just have a history? I mean, that's what we all did as kids, right? He's like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And then eventually he's like, and I'm gonna go to college for this. And it's like, I mean, you had no interest in this a month ago. How do you know you're gonna have an interest in this in a month?
Yeah.
But I mean, at the same time, it's like he never really expressed interest in anything but hanging out with his friends. So it's like just to see him, this little glimmer of like, oh, actual.
No, it's real for him.
Yeah.
But I mean, like,
It's
as
real
an
for a lot
outsider.
of people.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
But as an outsider, as a parent, I mean, you don't know that he's feeling all those things, and so for them to be like, oh, I don't, they're like, they're not bad parents for being a little worried. Is all I'm saying.
Like, that's the thing where he's like, I'm applying for 3 art universities, and the counselor is not doing a bad job saying like that's not a smart move to make, especially when, again, like, you don't have to have like a bunch of money and resources to start drawing. You had no interest in doing this until now, and now you're gonna say this is my future 100%. That is a very risky, irresponsible decision to make. If you're like, well, what if you find out you like doing, like, I don't know, driving bicycle? Like, what? How do you know? Like, if you just like, if you're gonna like, okay, I found out I like this. This is my life now. And like, that's not a smart move at all.
Yeah.
It's not smart, but it's his art.
It is now, and I'm sure, like, in this universe, like, obviously, I don't think he's gonna be like, yeah, I don't like drawing.
Yeah.
anymore.
But
it
like
is like
second volume, he's like, I'm
Yeah.
fucking done with this.
Yeah.
And
the kind of person who would be like, this is my life now. I'm doing this. You know, I have so much. I finally found, you know, what the thing for me is. And it's just like, you've never talked about this before. You know, you're going to find out that there's a lot of things you haven't done before. So in the real world, this person, I don't think would.
No, it's true. And I mean, I think that the counselor is just like, you have good enough grades to like go to college for something better than this.
You can
So,
minor in art.
Yeah. Yeah. You
And,
exactly.
And they
yeah.
do talk, and another thing I really like is they talk about the possibility of just having art as a hobby.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you could also just practice art while you go to do other stuff.
And I thought the teacher's, response to him was, again, put very well. She's like, you could do that. You can absolutely do that. But, if these are things that you want to accomplish and milestones you want to reach, then this is the road that you probably need to travel to do that. But you can also do this other thing, which is why when they have the life drawing lessons, I like the moment where the other character is saying, like, I don't need to do still life drawings. There are people online. It was another thing I like about it is it's a very modern take on like art, because now there's like YouTube tutorials, there's online classes, there's things that weren't as easily accessible. And they kind of talk about that. That character is talking about how like there's a lot of mangaka and digital artists who never go to school, who never do still life. And she's like, yeah, sure. But those people have like supplemented still life drawings with other things. They've spent more time looking at references and learning how to do things a different way, but it's equal time, just focused in a different area. And then what you're going to be able to do if you do this still life, more traditional route, is you're going to be able to draw on these skills and use them in a multitude of ways. And so, it's good for anybody who's thinking about being an artist. It's good for anybody who at one point was interested or is interested, because it does, present you with the same questions that you might have and a lot of people around you might have. And it is someone point blank telling you the reasons why any of those options are going to have whatever outcome they have.
Yeah, that's why it works better as a instruction manual than it does as a story for me.
Yes.
Yeah, and I feel like the audience is maybe like, young high school people, junior high people wondering where they fit in society and what they want to do. So if someone like read this and was like, I maybe want to do art because they like in taking manga or whatever the case may be, like, I think that's more the audience that the mangaka was trying to get to, because themselves are an artist.
But my point with that is that those are people that already probably know the basics of art.
That's the other, like, this guy's like, okay, I want to become an artist now. Now I'm an artist. And okay, well, here's what linear perspective. So it's like for the person who reads that, because it's like you're not gonna. I would not have read this as someone who like doesn't want to become. If you are like, I want to be an artist. This is about becoming an artist. And like this is a linear perspective. It's like there's no way they didn't do any of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. I think that some people don't know how to do that.
Yeah, and you're
probably
probably for sure right about that. And the people in the comments are going to let us know.
Sure right about that.
And also, in the comments, let us know if you told your group of friends you want to draw and they went, "You're a loser."
Okay, so let's get to that part with his friends, and they're kind of talking not behind his back, but they're talking about him on the stairs or whatever. And they're like, "Oh yeah, he's been seeming really like happy recently. Oh, he's like started drawing, I guess. Oh, that's pretty cool." And he's like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Oh, you're drawing. That's cool." And like he expected it not to be cool, and he didn't want to tell them or like talk about it, but they were like really supportive.
Yeah, these aren't caricatures of high school kids.
No,
that was a very real reaction to that situation. I feel like, oh yeah, cool. I'm glad he found something. I mean, he did kind of just hang out with us all the time, and we never really did anything.
They put that into perspective.
Yeah, they start confessing like, well, I'm not really going to be doing anything. Like, I'm going to go work at my dad's store, or I'm probably not going to do anything. You know, they're all kind of lost, and there's no judgment from any of them. And then, his parents, ultimately, his mom walking in on him, seeing everything spread out, all the sketches spread out. And there was the touching moment where she's like, I guess now all I have to do is just believe in him and support him. And that's great, because it does show a level of, now he's shown a level of dedication and seriousness for this. He's also hit a wall towards the end, and he goes to an art, like a
cram school.
Yeah. And, he's
how about spam school?
Spam
and it's where you go
school.
to eat spam.
Sign me up. He meets a lot of other people who are taking art really seriously. We should also just briefly mention that there's another older character who's like a year or two above him. He's trying really hard to get into this school, and he questions his ability because he looks to her like she's so great, yet she's struggling to get in this school. So he thinks like, if she's great and having a hard time, then I'm never going to make it. But then she does make it, and he says, okay, well, I just have to. And I love the line where he says like, and this is what happens at the school, but he says like, because he's confronted with someone who's a quote unquote genius, and he says like, I'm just going to have to work until people can't tell the difference between me and a genius. And I really like that. Like, that was so beautiful.
Yeah. There's a lot of lines about like confliction between you and your art, and like comparing yourself to others is just huge. Like, it's just like, it's inevitable, and you do it and you try not to. And people are like, don't, you're your own person. But it's like, but how can I not compare myself to people that are way above me? Or like, I just like the hard work that he's putting in, and like it's showing like there's people that are talented, but you have to fucking still work. Like, you're never going to get anywhere until those people are going to surpass you because they're working hard.
And what a lot of people have, you might have something that they don't, and vice versa. Like, you're going to always bring your own thing to whatever you do, which is, a lot of everything. There's so many people who worry about doing something that's been done before, but it's like, but you haven't done it before.
Volume 1.
I mean, no one's doing it like we do it.
No one's doing it like we do it. No one's doing.
I thought we were.
No one's doing it like we doing it.
We're the only volume 1.
Well,
yeah, don't look it up.
Don't look it up. Don't look it up.
God damn it, Cody.
I meant like, it was supposed to be we're the only one.
We're the only
and
one.
Then like a title pun.
Yes.
But someone decided to change the name of it.
Yeah, but also don't look it up. Yeah.
Don't look it up, but don't even worry about them.
No one's doing it like we doing it.
Yeah. Let's say we were worried for a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you were more worried than...
Yeah. Megan and Josh started off being like super mad, and then when I joined in, Megan's like, "We're done. I'm done talking about it.
True.
Why are you still talking about? Why are you still bringing it up?" And I'm like, you were on board for this
because it was ultimately a joke that manifested into reality for some.
You were mad, and then you got over it. Because you
and
like
then
those,
you kept
you said those fuckers, and I was like, I don't think it's a big deal. And then eventually, I was like, you know what? You're right. Megan goes,
you got on the bandwagon too late, Cody.
Megan's like, who cares? No one cares. Stop bringing it up.
That's not what I said at all.
You said stop bringing it up.
Okay, no one cares. Stop. You're painting me out. You're painting me out to be a villain here.
Wow. Oh, mayhaps you don't like your visage.
Oh boy.
That
Point is-
was not good.
The point is, don't worry about it. Don't worry about any other channels called Volume 1.
Yeah.
Except for the one you're watching.
Except for the one you watch.
And thanks for watching, by the
Thanks
way.
for watching and listening.
Each week.
Each week.
week.
It tackled everything, I think very well. We've said what we've said about the problems that we had. And the only problem that I had, I'll speak for myself, was just the fact that there were too many tutorials. You take that entire first volume, you cut out every quote unquote lesson, and I think it would have hit a lot harder. It would have felt a lot. I would have felt a lot more connected to the character, because the story, when it did the lessons, it did pause. Like the story paused. Everything paused.
Like it wasn't used with the story.
No.
It's just, and now this.
And now we're switching literally to learning mode.
Yeah.
And
guess-
yeah.
The thing is, this didn't make me appreciate art more. And I've read, like, watching Mob Psycho, that made me appreciate art. Reading Berserk made me appreciate art. So it's just this weird thing, like, the thing about art did not make me appreciate art anymore.
Yeah.
Than, like, something that, covers a bunch of other stuff on top of that.
Yeah. I just, like I said, connected with it. And I think that there are a lot of things in here. If you're someone who appreciates or likes art or does art or wants to do art, I think you can read this and you can take a lot away from it, especially if you're someone who's conflicted about it. And there's, imposter syndrome in a lot of things you do, but I feel like in anything creative, it's like more extreme. And so if you're dealing with any of that, like these or this series can help, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not
would-
even an artist, and I was like, oh yeah, like I can appreciate those little tidbits of us, self-sabotage that some people do.
I would say just watch Mob Psycho.
Oh my god, this is not the Mob Psycho. We do have an episode of Mob Psycho. If you
Yeah, we
guys check
do.
this out,
But yeah, I mean, there's nothing really else to say about it. I mean, as far as final thoughts, I think we've pretty much kind of even said that. But for me, I do want to reiterate that if you're interested in art at all, read this. And honestly, I will say, if you know anything about art when you read it, don't even bother reading the lessons. You can literally skip them, and you're not going to miss any story beats. You're not going to miss any character moments. You're not going to miss anything.
It's like, and that would be fine if they didn't have a large portion of this dedicated to that.
Yeah. But with everything that I've experienced, it did feel nice to feel like there are other people dealing with the things that we are dealing with. And it was inspiring ultimately. And again, I was not inspired because of the story. I was inspired by what this series was saying. But it wasn't like I was inspired by the events so much as like just the information and the way it was presented was inspiring. But it's a good series. It's not a series that I don't think, from the first volume at least, and I know, again, this is the first volume, but that's what we're here to talk about. Like, it's not something that's going to, like, blow your socks off necessarily, or make you weep at how beautiful art is, like you said, or even necessarily be more moved and inspired to look at art differently.
Because the manga about guys, like, fighting and stuff, that made me appreciate art more.
Yeah.
So I'm walking away with it. I got nothing from this series that, like, I haven't gotten from other stuff that, like, covers more things too.
And
So
I think,
this is a good, thing to give someone who's like, oh, I've been thinking about learning how to draw. Oh, you could check out Blue Period.
Yeah. And I do think it's nice to have these kind of conversations with you guys, because I feel like we feel a lot of the same connections with it, maybe on different levels. And it is nice to have an outsider's perspective from someone who has taken art classes, but it's like, I wouldn't consider myself an artist. I've been moved by other things. I think that we are all kind of representing, different parts of people who can consume this. And so I think you have like all the information you need to make an informed decision on whether this is a series that's going to be something you're interested in or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to watch it for sure.
Absolutely.
I'll check out the first episode just for the sake of, like, maybe the drawing was the issue. And, like, if you can present it in a more interesting visual way to me. Because, again, I can't get over the irony of the fact that it was artistically pretty okay. It wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad.
But I just assume if you're going to like do something about art, it's going to be like stylistic even.
Yeah, I kind of would imagine it almost maybe drawn in like a blood on the tracks sort of art style or something which has a more sketch-like sort of quality
like
to it.
Maybe the art could improve as it goes on.
Oh.
Maybe it was just for like the contrast between like manga style versus like the artwork on the page.
Yeah, it does make that art pop more because it is a more striking contrast. But yeah, I mean, like I said, you have all the information you need. I don't want to say moved by it, but I did enjoy it. I did take a lot away from it. I did relate to it. I would recommend it if you have any interest in art. Check it out and let us know what you think. If you've read Blue Period, and also like let us know where this story goes. Let us know if the tutorials and the lessons get a little less heavy-handed as the story goes on, because they are setting up.
How about they lessen the lessons?
They lessen the lessons.
Good one, Cody.
And now my contribution.
But I do like when you let us know if it's something that changes later, or focuses more on bigger plot details, because they are setting up that he has a deadline to get into this school to make this thing, and he has to get better by a certain time. So there are stakes. But yeah, so
sorry, I forgot to mention this. There's a anime about models and fashion, and it's a person who decides to be a fashion designer and take that seriously. And he meets a model that is not conventional and model-esque. She's short. She's worked her whole life to become a model. She's taken lessons. Her dad's a fashion company owner. She has all these things, but she's
like very short.
She's short, but she can't be. Everyone's telling her you can't be a model. You're never going to be a runway model. There's no way you can do it. You don't have the height. You need these certain classifications, because that's how the clothes fit on taller models better to make them look more, make them pop. And she's just like, no, I'm going to keep pushing until
it's about the triumph of a short girl.
Stop. No, I'm just comparing it to that, because there was some lessons in that, but it just was like a character like fighting against the odds, which maybe if he was bad trying to do better and he didn't, it might have been different.
Story-wise, that sounds more interesting.
It's a very good anime. Runway I don't know their name.
Runaway Dreams.
Runaway Dreams. No, it's very good. It's very wholesome, and I really enjoyed it. But it's kind of like that thing where it's taking a medium or an art and showing how the struggles between achieving that dream and what you can run into. And I just wanted to mention that. I forgot.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds super interesting. And check that out. I'm going to check that out. But check out Blue Period. Let us know what you think.
A run where we just do episodes about people doing the thing.
Yeah.
Maybe we will do that, Cody.
Maybe
we won't, but maybe we will.
What month is it?
June.
No.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Take longer, Cody.
Go ahead, Josh.
Let us know what you think about Blue Period if you've read it, and if you haven't read it and decide to read it based on this video, this podcast, this review. Let us know what you thought about it. You can talk to us about it in our Discord. There'll be links to that down below, because I would love to know more about the series and where it goes. But yeah, that's going to do it for our Blue Period discussion. The only thing left to do now is to move right along to our other famous segment, the Wonder Circle, where we discuss and respond to comments that you've left on previous videos that Volume 1chan produces and brings to our attention. If you want any of your comments read in a future Wonder Circle, you can just leave a comment on this video or any of our previous videos, and we might read it out loud. Or Volume 1chan will read it out loud. But speaking of which, Volume 1chan, can you read the first comment to us, please?
This one comes from Pay the Rent. Awesome! Will you guys and gals be covering the next arc?
This is from our most recent Berserk video.
So, we will, but not immediately.
No, yeah, and there was another comment too that I read that I was like, oh, I'm glad you guys are taking a break, because it's a lot to take in, and the next arcs are really cool, and I want to see you cover those. And we went berserk with the Berserk videos, and we had a great time reading them. But it is good to pace it out, because I'm excited to see what happens next, and I don't want to rush it.
Yeah, and it'll cause burnout and resentment towards something if you're forced to consume too much of it.
Absolutely.
So in order to enjoy it more, we have to. And also, we're not a Berserk channel.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, we really want to give our all to any series that we review. And
Yeah.
at any point, if it does feel like we're forced to do it, then it's just not going to come across as genuine.
Remember Haikyuu? Not a bad anime at all.
Yeah.
But I hate it. Just
That
because
was my bad.
Just because it's like, oh, yeah, we'll watch one season. How many episodes? 27? Oh, well, they're short. No, they're not.
Oh, how much time do we have? A week.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't even think it was a week. It was like fucking 5
It's
days
probably,
or something.
yeah, it was less than a week.
Yeah, and we were pushing through it like a volleyball over a net.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. No, you got it. Why are you making that face? That was great.
We were
That's
Nope, you got it.
That's
Nope.
how wordplay works.
Oh,
we
yeah.
were spiked.
Okay.
Well, okay. All right. I guess.
We were
Our
bald.
feelings spiked
Sure.
because we were
Yeah.
happy, and then as it went
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, point is, yes, we will get to it. That is the important part, is that we will get to it. It's just going to be on our own time. But don't think that we just did that first run and that we're not going to make any more of those videos. We
it will
definitely
once we
do that.
do get to it, we will finish whatever new arc.
Mhm.
So
And we all want to read it. And we
Yeah.
can't read it without talking about it. So
Yeah.
it's gonna push us to want to
Yeah.
read it. So and we like talking about it with each other. So yeah.
I'd say give it like a couple weeks before
Yeah.
we start thinking about it. And
Yeah, it's not even like, don't expect it to be like a crazy long amount of time before we get around to it. Just
Yeah.
a little bit.
It's just important to enjoy a story if you get to take it in, take a break, go back to it. That way I'm never like, all right, just one more chapter.
Yeah, and let's be honest, that arc was a great place to leave
And take a
Berserk
breather.
on a little shelf and take a breather because I am still pretty heartbroken about the whole situation.
Yeah, and just really give us time to process
Changing your
everything.
phone screensaver. Where,
dude, that was tough.
Yeah.
That was tough for me.
Yeah.
That was fucking tough.
Volume 1, Sean, can you read another comment for us, please?
This one comes from Leonardo. I thank the laws of causality for allowing me to find this channel.
Aww.
We thank the laws of causality as well, my friend. Thank you for being here with us, and stay tuned.
Thank you, Leonardo.
yeah.
That was such a fun comment.
Cody,
yeah.
you have anything to say to Leonardo?
Thank you.
Oh, speaking of Leonardo, Da Vinci.
Oh, it fits
Yeah.
into the theme of today's
The
episode.
theme.
It's all coming together.
Yeah.
Volume 1, Sean, one more comment before we get out of here, please.
This one comes from Layla Rose. Yikes, I got roasted. Regardless, looking forward to hearing your future Berserk reviews whenever you make them.
Oh, Layla.
Yeah, Layla Rose, first of all, let me just say this. I love you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm glad you were a good sport about everything, and I'm glad you had a good laugh with us.
Yeah.
But that
we
is,
weren't
of
mad
course,
at you. We were mad at the situation.
Yeah, that of course was the comment that pointed out that the king from Berserk.
Spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Spoiler. Okay.
Uh,
say it like
was
4
a
or 5
little more into just being a father to his daughter. Politely, our response was, no shit.
You know,
But don't take that personally. Thank you for being a good sport about it. And thank you for
Yeah.
commenting again.
it was just the straw of a feeling like, I mean, I know we talked about this, sort of getting gaslit by our comment section. Because it is like, did we say we were anti
No,
or pro
no.
that?
Well, that's what it is.
No,
It does make
no,
you question
No.
it.
Yeah, it does because we talk about so much stuff. We're like, did we?
Yeah.
Fuck, did we?
Maybe we did.
Maybe
Maybe we
we did.
weren't like,
Did we talk about
specific
Nickelodeon?
enough?
I,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
couldn't tell ya. So yeah.
Yeah. But, Layla Rose, I mean, we love you. We appreciate you. And, the icon, I saw another comment down there, talking about the icon, your YouTube icon. And I just want to say, it is a little, it's a little scary.
It is very scary.
But I like
very
it
scary.
What's the
because it represents you.
It's a clown,
And not that you're scary.
but it's not like a like. It's
Oh,
like
the
a,
former president.
Oh God. And I do want to say not that you're scary, it's just because that's what you chose. And, I support your decision. Yeah. And I support your decision to keep listening and keep watching. Yeah.
Thank you.
each week.
Each week.
That's going to do it for the Wonder Circle, and that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening. And, of course, before we get out of here, we have to thank our wonderful, beautiful, amazing Patreon members. Thank every single one of you, all of our Patreons. Thank you so much for all of your support. And, again, all of our new Patreon members, we appreciate you. Thank you so, so, so much. I mean, every time we get a new Patreon member, we all text each other and we all get so excited.
It's so insane.
And it's so insane that just people are, willing to support us in the way that you're supporting us. And it does mean a lot to us. And we appreciate literally every single one of you. And if you want to be a Patreon member and get access to perks like early access to episodes or even physical like merch items like shirts, stickers, you can do that by signing up at patreon.com/volume1pod. And a new thing that we're offering is a bonus exclusive Patreon behind the scenes podcast that's available at our lowest tier, which I think is like $3. So,
$3, and
yeah.
we talk about whatever the fuck we want.
Absolutely, and they're so much fun.
Yeah,
so
they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the funnest time.
Yeah.
And boy, howdy, are you missing out.
Yes.
If you have doubt, give us a shout.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And so thank you again to everybody also who just watches and shows their support by liking, by commenting, by subscribing, by sharing the video or podcast episodes with anybody. We appreciate your support no matter how you show it. Yeah, we love all of you guys. Thank you so much. And the only thing left to do now is get out of here on our outro that is always the same and never changes, which today I think has to be...
Period.
Oh, wow. Thank you for watching, period. Thank you for listening, period. I'm Blue Double D Double Die.
Oh, I like that one. So listen up. Here's a story about a little guy that I'm pointing to Cody for the audio listeners.
Yeah.
And all day and all night, and everything he sees is just blue.
Yep, like him inside and outside.
Inside and outside.
Yep.
That's hilarious.
I know.
We'll do Blue Double D Double Die.
Yeah.
Thank you as always for watching. Thank you as always for listening. And until next time,
I'm Blue Double D Double Die. If I was green, I would die.